My beloved brothers and sisters, don't worry. Allah will take care of everything. Even the things you can't see, can't understand, and can't change, Allah is already arranging them with His perfect wisdom. Sometimes all He wants is for your heart to finally let go of fear and hold on to Him. Remember what Allah tells us in the Quran. And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. Imagine that, the Lord of the heavens and the earth saying to you, I am enough for you, enough to guide you, enough to protect you, enough to fix what you think is shattered beyond repair. There are moments when life becomes so heavy that you start believing you're walking alone. Bills piling up, doors closing, people disappointing you, prayers unanswered, for now. But that is exactly the moment when Allah's mercy begins to unfold. When things fall apart, it is not the end. It is the beginning of a divine restructuring. Think for a moment, how many times in your life did you think, this is over, I won't survive this, yet you did. How? Who carried you? Who softened someone's heart to help you? Who sent a message at the right moment? Who placed the right person, the right opportunity, the right idea in your path at the perfect time? Allah. He sends signs in ways you don't expect. Sometimes it's a sudden chance meeting with someone who brings clarity. Sometimes it's a delay that saves you. Sometimes it's a rejection that redirects you. Sometimes it's a heartbreak that frees you. Allah says no only to replace it with a better yes, once your heart is ready. Picture this, a seed buried in darkness beneath the soil. It feels pressure, it feels isolation, it feels suffocation, but that darkness is not its death, it is its preparation. Soon it breaks open, pushes upward, and meets the sunlight. Your life works the same way. When Allah puts you in darkness, it is never to destroy you, only to grow you. So when you worry about the future, remind yourself, the future is already written by the one who loves you more than you love yourself. Allah sees the tears you don't talk about. He hears the dua you whisper quietly in the night. He knows every fear you carry in your chest, and He will respond, not according to your timing, but His perfect timing. Trust Him more than you trust your worries. Let your heart settle. Let your chest breathe again. Allah has never abandoned you, not even for a second. Every setback is a setup for something greater. Every delay hides a wisdom. Every test hides a gift. Your job is not to understand the plan, only to trust the planner. But trust requires preparation. You can't ask Allah for blessings while living as if you don't expect them. Fix your intentions. Purify your heart. Reset your direction. Because when Allah decides it's time to open the doors for you, they will open in ways you never imagined. They will open so wide that you'll look back and realize why every other door stayed closed. Allah quotes promise of care and protection is one of the most comforting realities a believer can hold on to, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. People imagine Allah's care only in the form of immediate relief, quick solutions, and visible support. But Allah's care is far deeper, far wider, far more precise than your own imagination. When Allah promises in the Quran, and whoever relies upon Allah, He is sufficient for him, it is not poetry, nor is it a vague reassurance. It is a divine guarantee, a truth stitched into the fabric of your existence. When Allah says He is enough, He is declaring that no situation, no person, no obstacle, and no force in this world can overpower His will for you. This is a God who knows your fears before you can translate them into words, who knows the whispers in your heart before you even admit them to yourself, who knows the routes that lead to your ease and the paths that will drown you. His protection is not passive, His care is not distant, His promise is not metaphorical. It is real, direct, and active in your life with every breath you take. Think about how many dangers you walk through every single day without even being aware of them. The accident you never saw, the illness that never reached you, the harm that was diverted long before it could touch your life. You don't see Allah rearranging the harmful events around you like pieces on a chessboard, but He is. His angels are constantly guarding you in ways your eyes will never catch. When something painful happens, your heart reacts instantly. But you must understand that you only witness the surface of things. Allah sees the entire landscape of your destiny, from beginning to end. What feels like a wound may be the shield that protects you. What feels like a loss may be the doorway to a future you asked for in dua. His care is sometimes wrapped in softness, sometimes in hardship, but always in wisdom. A believer who understands this doesn't fear the storm, because they know who is controlling the wind. Look at the stories Allah preserved in the Quran. When Musa alayhi salam stood trapped between the sea and the army, people saw destruction, but Allah saw deliverance. When Maryam alayhi salam stood alone under a palm tree in pain and fear, people saw weakness, but Allah saw a miracle about to unfold. When Yunus alayhi salam sat in the belly of the whale, surrounded by darkness upon darkness, people saw no escape, but Allah saw a moment of transformation. In every story, Allah's care didn't appear early, but it arrived at the exact second it was meant to. Never late, never early, never rushed. This pattern didn't end with the prophets. It is occurring in your own life too. Allah's promise hasn't changed. The way He protects hasn't changed. The timing of His help hasn't changed. What has changed is your ability to recognize His subtle signs. Sometimes Allah protects you by removing people you desperately wanted to keep. Sometimes He delays a blessing until your heart grows strong enough to receive it. Sometimes He withholds an opportunity because it would have destroyed your peace. Sometimes He makes you wait, not because He hasn't written the blessing for you, but because He is protecting you from receiving it prematurely. His protection is not always what your emotions want, but it is always what your soul needs. The more you trust this, the lighter your heart becomes. You begin to understand that you don't need to control everything in your life, when the one who created everything is already controlling what is meant for you. When you truly absorb this, you stop fearing the future, you stop replaying the past. You walk through your days with a quiet strength rooted in the belief that Allah's promise is working around you, even when you can't see its shape yet. When life begins to fall apart, when the things you were holding on to start slipping through your fingers, it often feels like a punishment, a rejection, or an abandonment. But in the reality that Allah sees, it is the beginning of a grand rearrangement. Hardships are not random disruptions, they are divine interventions. They appear exactly when something in your life needs to shift your direction, your mindset, your relationships, your habits, your attachments, your priorities. Allah does not break you to destroy you, He breaks you to rebuild you in a better shape, one that aligns with the destiny He has written for you. Sometimes the first step of that rebuilding is the collapse of the structures you built with your own expectations. A believer must learn to see chaos, not as the end of Allah's plan, but as the clearing of space so His plan can begin. Think about the moments when you whispered to Allah, asking for guidance, for change, for strength, for success, for a new life. These du'as don't disappear, they start a process. But for that process to be fulfilled, something has to move. Allah rearranges the unseen world before He changes your visible world. He removes what is harmful, shifts what is blocking you, exposes what is false, and opens what is buried. To you it looks like things are falling apart, but in the heavens the angels are already writing the beginning of your transformation. People leave because they can't walk with you into the next chapter. Opportunities close because they're not written for the version of you that Allah is creating. Pain intensifies because it softens the parts of your heart that were too stubborn to grow. Every hardship shakes something inside you that needed to be shaken. There are times when Allah pushes you to a point where you feel like you have no control left. This is not cruelty, this is purification. As long as you believe you can fix everything alone, you won't fully surrender to Him. And surrender is where miracles start. When you reach the point where you lift your hands and say, Ya Allah, I can't do this without you, the doors of divine support begin to open. Hardships strip away illusions. They expose the fragile things you rely on so you can finally rely on Him. Allah knows that your heart cannot rise while it is weighed down by the temporary, so He removes what has become a barrier between you and your destiny. The removal feels painful, but the truth is that Allah is clearing the path for something better than what you were holding on to. Every believer faces a moment when the world becomes quiet, when nothing makes sense, when the heart feels suspended between fear and hope. This moment is the birthplace of tawakkul. You begin to realize that control was never yours to begin with. The things you clung to were never meant to carry the weight of your life. Only Allah can do that. And so the crisis you fear becomes the turning point of your soul. You grow in ways comfort would never allow. You learn patience, surrender, resilience, trust. You begin to see how every broken piece fits into a larger picture you couldn't see before. Sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as loss. Sometimes the deepest peace grows out of the moments that nearly broke you. Sometimes the path Allah chooses for you begins with the ending of the path you chose for yourself. And when you look back one day, you realize that everything that collapsed was actually falling into place, that the chaos was mercy in disguise, that the pain was a bridge leading you to a place your old self could never reach. There are moments in life when you feel completely overlooked, forgotten, or abandoned by the world. You cry for help, but no one seems to hear. You look for answers but none appear. Yet it is precisely at these moments when your heart is trembling in uncertainty that Allah begins to send signs. These signs are subtle, gentle, and perfectly timed. They don't always come as miracles that shake the earth. Sometimes they arrive as the smallest shift in your circumstances, a single conversation, a random message, a sudden idea in your mind, or a feeling that settles in your chest without explanation. These are not coincidences. These are divine fingerprints on the timeline of your life. Allah sends signs not to overwhelm you, but to guide you step by step, to remind you that even in your confusion He is orchestrating everything around you. Real-life stories are full of these moments. Think about a person who lost their job and thought their life was falling apart. They prayed, cried, begged for clarity. Weeks later, an unexpected opportunity appeared, one that paid better, brought peace and aligned with the future they had secretly hoped for. If they had kept the old job, they would have never grown, never moved, never stepped into what was meant for them. They didn't know it at the time, but the loss was a sign. The delay was a sign. The loneliness was a sign. Allah was moving them without their awareness. Signs often show up disguised as discomfort because your soul wakes up in hardship in ways it never does in ease. Another example is the moment a person is about to make a decision they believe is right. Their mind is convinced. Their emotions are attached, but something in their heart feels unsettled. A heaviness, a hesitation, a quiet whisper telling them to pause. That feeling is a sign. Allah protects you even through intuition. Sometimes He places a barrier in your path to stop you from walking into something that isn't written for you. Other times He makes the wrong thing feel wrong no matter how hard you try to convince yourself otherwise. And then later when the truth unfolds, you finally understand why your heart resisted. You realize that Allah's guidance was inside you long before your mind could make sense of it. There are also signs that come through people. Someone you barely know says something that cuts straight into your heart. A reminder appears exactly when you needed it most. A person enters your life at the perfect moment, not early, not late, and their presence shifts everything. They support you when you're weak, push you when you're stuck, or bring clarity when your vision is blurry. These are not random encounters. Allah sends certain souls at specific times to hold your hand through a chapter you cannot walk alone, and when their purpose is complete they leave, because their presence was never meant to be permanent. They were a sign, not a destination. Sometimes the sign is in the delay itself. You pray for something intensely, and nothing happens. Days turn to weeks, weeks turn to months, and your heart begins to question. But the silence is not rejection, it is preparation. Allah delays blessings until the moment they will benefit you the most. If He gave you everything the moment you asked, you might not appreciate it, you might misuse it, or you might not be ready to carry it. The delay is a sign that something greater is being aligned behind the scenes. The silence is a sign that Allah is still working, still arranging, still protecting every angle of your life. And then there are signs you only recognize in hindsight. Times when you look back and realize that what felt like your worst season was actually the beginning of your best one. The heartbreak that pushed you toward Allah, the failure that motivated you, the disappointment that humbled you, the sudden change that forced you to grow. Allah's signs are always there. Sometimes they're obvious, sometimes they're hidden, sometimes they're loud, sometimes they're quiet, but they always arrive at the exact moment your soul needs direction, reminding you that Allah never leaves you wandering without guidance, never lets you walk without light, and never allows you to be lost unless He is guiding you into a better path. Trusting Allah more than you trust your fears is not something that happens overnight. It is a process that unfolds inside your heart. A slow unlearning of every lie your mind has whispered to you in moments of weakness. Fear tells you that you are alone, that things will go wrong, that you won't survive what's ahead. Fear magnifies the worst possibilities, and convinces you that the future is something to dread. But trust in Allah flips this entire narrative. Trust whispers back, the one who created the future is the one who will take care of you in it. Trust tells you that nothing you face will be greater than the one who guides you through it. Trust anchors you, softens your panic, and builds a quiet confidence that fear can never shake. Fear is loud, urgent, chaotic. It screams inside your chest and makes you imagine every door closing. It pushes you into overthinking, and makes your heart race with scenarios that will never happen. But Allah's promises are calm, steady, and unchanging. In the Quran, Allah repeatedly reminds us to rely on Him, to hand over our burdens, to let go of what we cannot control. When you trust Allah, you are not pretending that hardship doesn't exist. You are simply choosing to believe that hardship will never overpower the mercy of the one who decreed it. You shift from what if something goes wrong, to what if Allah is planning something better than I can see. This mindset transforms your entire relationship with fear. There are people who live their whole lives imprisoned by fear. Fear of failing, fear of losing, fear of being judged, fear of the unknown. They hesitate to take steps forward because they've convinced themselves they must see the whole path before they move. But Allah doesn't ask you to see the path. He asks you to trust the one who built it. When you take one step in His direction, He opens roads you never imagined existed. Trust is not about perfect clarity. It's about moving with faith even when clarity hasn't arrived yet. Fear waits for certainty. Trust walks with uncertainty, knowing that Allah is the one who holds every outcome. Think about how many times you were afraid of something that never happened. How many nights you spent overthinking situations that Allah resolved effortlessly. How many scenarios played out in your mind that Allah never allowed to reach your life. Fear focuses on what could go wrong, but trust focuses on the one who makes everything go right. Trust teaches you that the world is not falling apart just because you don't understand what's happening. It reminds you that Allah is already ahead of you, already protecting you, already smoothing out what you fear might break you. Fear blinds you to Allah's mercy. Trust opens your eyes to how close He really is. There are also moments in life when fear comes not from what is happening, but from what might happen. You fear losing what you love, fear not receiving what you hope for, fear change, fear disappointment, fear endings. But trust teaches your heart that Allah never takes without giving, never closes without opening, never delays without wisdom. When you trust Him, you start to understand that anything leaving your life was never meant to stay, and anything written for you will find you no matter how long it takes. Fear tells you that you need to hold everything tightly. Trust tells you that what is written for you is protected by Allah Himself. And sometimes the strongest trust is born in your weakest moments. When your strength runs out, when your plans fail, when your heart breaks, when you have nothing left to lean on but Allah, that is when trust becomes real. You stop fighting for control, and start surrendering to the one who is in control. You begin to realize that your fear was never about the situation itself. It was about forgetting who Allah is. When you remember His power, His mercy, His timing, His love, your fears begin to dissolve. You walk differently, breathe differently, think differently. You carry a quiet peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, because your heart finally knows that no matter what happens, Allah will carry you through it. Preparing yourself for the blessings that Allah has written for you is a journey that begins long before those blessings arrive. Many people want ease, success, love, provision, clarity and guidance. Yet they forget that blessings require readiness. You cannot step into a new chapter while carrying the weight of an old one. You cannot hold what Allah wants to give you if your hands are full of what He has asked you to let go. Preparation is not about waiting passively. It is about becoming the kind of person who can receive, appreciate and protect the gifts Allah sends. Blessings come with responsibilities, with tests, with expectations, and with spiritual weight. Allah does not place something heavy on a fragile heart. He strengthens you first, shapes you through hardship, molds your character, purifies your intentions, and transforms your mindset, so that when the blessing arrives, you can rise to meet it instead of collapsing under its demands. There are doors you are praying for right now that require you to grow before they can open. Maybe you want a better job, but Allah wants you to develop discipline and patience first. Maybe you want a beautiful marriage, but Allah wants you to heal your heart, refine your character, and learn emotional maturity before He brings the right person into your life. Maybe you want financial stability, but Allah wants to cleanse your habits, your planning, and your relationship with risk. Blessings are never denied. They are prepared for. Sometimes the delay in receiving them is simply the time Allah is giving you to transform into someone who can handle them with grace instead of fear. When you focus on preparing yourself, you begin to understand that the wait is not wasted time, it is sacred time. Preparation also requires removing the barriers within yourself that block blessings. Doubt, negativity, arrogance, impatience, unhealthy attachments, and hidden sins can close doors faster than any external obstacle. Allah wants your heart to be clear, soft, and sincere. A heart filled with resentment cannot carry peace. A heart attached to the wrong people cannot receive the right ones. A heart filled with fear cannot hold abundance. When you let go of what Allah has been trying to remove, you create space for something better to enter. Many people ask for blessings, but hold tightly to the very things that are preventing those blessings from reaching them. Preparation is the courage to release what weighs you down, trusting that whatever leaves your life was not meant to accompany you into the next stage of your journey. Another part of preparing for blessings is aligning your actions with your prayers. You cannot ask Allah to guide you while walking into the same mistakes knowingly. You cannot ask Allah for success while wasting time and neglecting effort. You cannot ask Allah for healing while clinging to habits that reopen old wounds. When your actions and your du'as begin to match, you create a powerful spiritual momentum. It is like preparing the soil before planting a seed. You don't just ask for the harvest, you nurture the ground. You protect it from weeds. You water it with consistency. The same is true for your spiritual life. You build routines that strengthen your iman. You carve out time for remembrance. You purify your circle. You guard your tongue. You strive for sincerity. Little by little, your heart becomes stronger, clearer, and more aligned with what you are asking for. And then there is the emotional readiness for blessings. Sometimes Allah withholds what you want, because receiving it too early would overwhelm you. Imagine giving a child a treasure they don't understand. They would break it. Allah does not give you something precious until your heart can value it. Blessings require maturity, gratitude,
humility, and wisdom. When you prepare yourself, you start to develop these qualities. You begin to detach your self-worth from outcomes and attach it to Allah. You stop rushing life and start trusting divine timing. You stop begging life to move faster and begin focusing on becoming better. Blessings chase those who are ready for them. The moment Allah sees that your heart, actions, and intentions are aligned, the doors that felt locked will open effortlessly. You will look back and realize that the waiting, the struggles, the tests, and the preparation were not obstacles, but stepping stones shaping you into the person capable of holding the very blessings you once thought would never arrive.